we're going to move on to a little series that I've kind of dubbed Good Idea, Bad Idea. And like I said, it's not about second guessing, but it's maybe to kind of explain a little bit where you're coming from on some of the issues. The first one we've touched on a little bit, Maplecrest Road Extension project. Good idea, I'm going to guess, is what your response
Good
will
idea.
be. Yeah.
Good idea. It stimulates economic development in a part of the county that's been kind of overlooked. It will also provide jobs. It's already stimulating business interest. It's a good idea. It will not be an added burden to taxpayers. As you know, it's part of the funding is coming because it's a tax increment financing district as well. Once we figured out the revenue streams for financing Maplecrest, I think we all voted for it with the exception of one council member.
Are you concerned about a Walmart being built there, I believe at North Adams Center Road? Do we need another Walmart there? Any thoughts on that?
Well, if the people in that community, if they feel that they want a Walmart, I am certainly not going to argue against that. Whether we need another Walmart, let me say this to you. I'm trying to save as much money as possible myself, and I find that I shop at Walmart a considerable amount of the time. I remember the same question was raised when the Walmart was built in the southeast, out off, I believe, Tillman Road. I believe it's Tillman Road.
Yeah.
But then there were people who wanted a Walmart. Then there were other people who said, well, you know, we have too many Walmarts already. We don't need one. Well, no one is forcing you to shop at those stores. And they do provide jobs. And people will say, yes, but those are lower paying jobs. I'd rather have some kind of job to make ends meet than no job at all. And there are good prices, so I'm not here to badmouth Walmart. I'm here to encourage business development.
Okay. County option income tax. That's one of the few things that's been left to local entities to be able to raise since the property tax caps have gone into effect. If it came down to it, would you be willing to explore raising the county option income tax?
I would be reluctant to do it. We're already anticipating shortages in county government. We know that we're going to have them because of the tax caps and the reduced property tax revenue. The city is also forecasting large losses in revenue. At some point, we're going to have to look at raising taxes. I will be dragged kicking and screaming into that process, because you don't want to add to the burden, to the tax burden of local taxpayers. But at the same time, you have to be able to pay for taxes, to pay for services. And my concern is we've cut to the bone on Allen County Council. We have tried not to let people go. I'm talking about in jobs now. But at the same time, if the property tax caps are made constitutional, then we're going to have to look at some other ways to add revenue, to pay for essential services. You know, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal, interestingly enough, about Indiana and property taxes. And they were saying that Indiana is a state where they seem to be supporting the tax caps, property tax caps being made constitutional, even though they know that it's going to hurt services. Well, if you look at other communities, when you start laying off police officers, when you start laying off firemen, and even though I know in the county you have volunteer fire departments and so on, but at some point, those services that enhance quality of life, the quality of life that people are used to in this community, and when they're no longer there, then that's when you got to start looking at raising taxes in other ways.
That's kind of one of the paradoxes, isn't it? That you know, citizens want lower taxes, but they also want all the wonderful services that we've gotten used to.
I can understand that,
Sure.
But at the same time, it's what my tax dollar is paying for. I want good services. You know, I've been the recipient of what I consider good services in Fort Wayne and Allen County, and I want to continue those services. I also am very cognizant of the fact that the people who provide those services, that's their living. So it's one thing to pay property taxes as long as I'm a lot more concerned about how my tax dollar is being spent. Am I getting the biggest bang for the buck? But I also am concerned about my neighbor down the street. You understand, who might be dependent on services that are being paid for as part of my property tax dollar. And through no fault of this individual, they need those services. You know, the Council on Aging provides vital services, essential services for people who have been good citizens and paid their taxes all of their lives. And now they're at an age, at an advanced age, where they can't do for themselves, and they need that extra meal a day. They need that transportation service. Our schools, I'm very concerned about education and the quality of education. Our children have to compete in a global workforce, and many of them are not ready. They can't read. They have not mastered the sciences. And we have, what I feel, an obligation on every citizen's part to ensure that our children get a sound education. And if long as my tax dollar is going for those services, I don't mind paying a little more. And that's just my approach to it. I don't want my money wasted, and I don't think the average, though, and I can only speak for me, but I've talked to other people who also care. You know, you have to balance. You know, you're thinking in terms of, well, I'm paying all these taxes, but I also sleep better at night when I feel that there are others in the community who are being taken care of. And there are people who, through no fault of their own, who are born into a certain level of poverty. And I do think we have an obligation to our neighbor. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether I answered your question, but that's my response. You have to be concerned about that balance. You know, I don't want my tax dollar being spent foolishly. When you look at some of the things that we've been paying for with our federal taxes as compared to what we're getting locally, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I really do. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we can always do a better job. But I don't think that you can separate your responsibility as a taxpayer, as someone who is concerned about the overall quality of life in the community. Because if you don't pay in one way, you will pay in another. And we're already seeing that.